then maybe we can. Hi, James.
Hey, Ruth.
So just to say that we're having this webinar on the 17th of October, Monday in the UK. And it's mainly just to get an update on Sociocracy and also to pilot. I also have this dream of maybe next year doing a series of monthly interviews with you and Lily, or webinars, or looking at specific topics. And maybe this is just a way to see how it feels to have this dialogue online, record it, and then share with people. Okay.
It sounds great.
And I think this is also especially for the Brazilian kind of network around Sociocracy 3.0. And my main questions are around are there any news and updates since March, which was the last time you were in Brazil? What is happening in the S3 world? I always hear about this fast expansion and some interesting courses that happened. And also maybe second to that, any methodology improvements or any insights you've had regarding S3, anything that you would like to share? Yeah,
sure. Okay.
That's the overall, but choose a place to start and then we move on from there.
Okay, well, the other day Lily and I celebrated while we were in Krakow in Poland. We were running a 3-day introduction there, and we realized that it was the 21st 3 to 4 day course that we'd run in a year around the world. So that was really cool. And I also did some sums because I've been speaking with others like yourself and Rafael Fabiano in Brazil, and the SEOP project, which I can say more about as well.
That would be great.
And I think this year there'll be something like 38 to 40 courses running with different people around the world, and well over 1,000 people being impacted. And these are like 3 to 4 day upward courses, some of them 7 or 8 days. So that's really exciting.
Wow, that's really exciting.
And good to see nearly half the courses being run by others who participated in our courses previously. So this idea of rolling out, supporting people to be able to carry things forward themselves is really paying off. And one of the things I notice is that people are, instead of saying, well, I can't actually go out and do this yet, I can't share it with others, they're just being transparent about their level of understanding and experience and saying, hey, this looks pretty cool and I'd like to share it with you and let's learn together around these patterns. So everyone's working towards this co-learning environment. It's not so much reliant on experts per se,
great,
but more environment of experimentation. So that's nice to see.
That's really nice. Yeah, I always feel that if we wait until we've practiced a lot of, self-management, self-organization, dynamic governance, if we wait until we're really super experts about it, then, the world will have changed so much. It's irrelevant, or at least we've missed an opportunity to make a difference now. So I think it's important for people to just get out with some care. And I think, I also love to talk about maybe for people who are interested in facilitating S3 more, what do you think are some basic parameters or basic criteria that people should have when they say they want to spread this?
Yeah. Well, I think facilitation is a general skill anyway that we spend our lives learning, and then unlearning and then relearning. So there's always room for development there. What we're finding is that artful participation is crucial because it's moving away from this paradigm of reliance on the expert facilitator and sharing the accountability amongst everybody in the team towards being able to pull in patterns and use them in a good enough for now way. And it's probably one of the most popular patterns. It's the one everyone's talking about. It's one of the most challenging, and it's the most simple and complex at the same time. Because when we share this question, is my collaboration the greatest contribution I can make to the effectiveness of this collaboration, then it really brings people around to look at themselves and helps people to become conscious, I think, of how they themselves can stand in the way of a more effective process. And then this other pattern from S3 around being the change.
Yeah.
So these two together, I think they're a little bit abstract from one point of view, but they're really challenging for people and are probably at the heart of effective collaboration or more effective collaboration in teams. And if people have this conscious at the forefront of their minds when they come together, then it goes a long way towards everything else going much more smoothly.
Mm.
And facilitation, I think, is an area that, I mean, there's various courses and trainings and opportunities for people and mentoring programs and peer-to-peer support. And I think it would be valuable within the S3 movement to develop more around this. Certainly the idea of peer-to-peer support, I think. But in the end, people just need to get out there and have a go and practice. And if they can practice in environments where it's safe enough to fail, with people who are compassionate enough to allow that, then that's probably the best way people are going to learn.
That's nice. We have a really nice practice group in Brazil with Rafael and Fabi, and mainly most of the people that are in a way teaching or facilitating S3 in Brazil. It's a democracy group, so we're also bringing, nonviolent communication and dragon dreaming into it. But it's really cool because we meet every 2 weeks and we rotate facilitation. So people will facilitate and be the secretary for 2 weeks, and then we can really give feedback on that. And we also created our own version of an operational meeting, and it's about a lot sharing what we've been doing and our experiences, and we're really trying to harvest the experience that's being generated, and then also being able to give each other support, if something doesn't go wrong or if they have an insight, and I think that's so needed. It's just this beautiful peer-to-peer support kind of group that we're creating, but focusing on really trying out, focusing on testing and trying out. So yeah, we're really going out there and trying to put the patterns to work, and then we can harvest the experience.
And you're using real content when you come together. I mean, you have specific things to organize, to agree around as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did.
I think this is the key. Yeah, because I'm seeing there's a lot of people who come together with the idea of a community of practice, but unless there's some real drivers that people are genuinely concerned to respond to, then they don't tend not to last very long. I don't have much faith in a kind of community of practice where people just come and hang out to practice the patterns per se. And it's when people have real stuff to organize that it has value.
Yeah, and I think we've done an impact mapping and a dream circle, and we have quite a lot of domains to organize now. And then the idea of probably also setting up, one of the ideas that came is to set up an agency, a consulting agency. Yeah. So we do have a more like operational and practical side as well. But we're taking a while to get there because we only meet every 2 weeks.
That sounds like enough. You mentioned the word impact mapping. So I seem to remember when we came to Brazil, that was the term we were using. And we evolved that now. We call it driver mapping.
Right.
And driver mapping is another pattern that's proving to be super powerful. We've used it in many contexts, either with consultancy, also with trainings. And as you know, as a way to kickstart the deepening course. And there's been some evolution. We've noticed many adaptations of the basic pattern.
That would be great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, well basically it's like the start is always the same. There's a primary driver for the driver mapping, consent to the driver, and then mapping out the various actors who will be impacted. And from there go into what's needed by each of them or in relation to them. So that's the same in all cases. There's this option to then look at product, services, actions, principles that may kind of serve meeting some of what's needed, which I realize now is very much a kind of harvest while everybody's together. It's like a bit like the ideas round in the proposal forming. It's just throw out your ideas while we're all together, because then whoever's responding to these specific drivers later will have your ideas to consider. But at this point, we see that there's three ways that things can go. You can organize more actor-centric, or more needs-centric, or a combination of both. And if you look at a more agile approach, where you're sort of focused to the customer and value delivery from start to finish, then it makes sense sometimes to go more actor-centric. So you have domains of people who are responding to a cluster of actors, so you can cluster actors. But sometimes it makes sense to outsource some of the things that are needed, like administration or legal or finance or whatever it may be. So we are inviting groups. We explain the three dimensions, actor-centric, need-centric, or both and then invite the groups to chaotically figure that out. And always within 10 minutes, there's some kind of unexpected arrangement of clusters that people then gather around to move forward with. So we were in a course in London not so long ago. There was a PhD from UCLA who was in the course. He's contracted to consult. Are you still with me, Ruth?
No, I can't.
He's contracted to consult on some quite big projects.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Up to several billion. And he was saying how he and other peers would come together sometimes for 3 months or so as and he said during halfway through this driver mapping, he said, "You'll never believe it. We are paid so much, or people pay so much money for our services. We spend months coming up with strategies how to respond to drivers. And honestly, they're not even that good. They always end up changing anyway. And in 1 hour, we've done something more effective than we could achieve in 3 months together."
Wow. And what I love about driver mapping is that there is this period of total chaos. Mm-hmm. And then somehow, like, you can see order beginning to emerge.
It's amazing, huh? Yeah. I'm loving that pattern. I think it's really, really powerful. And if you think in the context of startups, so many groups of people coming together to collaborate towards something, and it gives you such a rapid way to kickstart the project and come up with a good enough for now structure that's based specifically around what's needed rather than any concept around what the perfect organization should look like. So it's great.
Hello, do you want to say hello? Come here. Look at this is my lovely Rowan nephew.
Hey, Rowan. Wow, you're super beautiful.
Yes.
Good morning.
I'm Paolo's nephew. Say good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Rowan.
See, I'm a bit shy now. He's not that shy.
Yeah.
He can't hear you. That's why. Okay, let's try again.
Okay. Hey, Rowan. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Do you want to say good morning to James? Yay! Yeah, you can say hi.
What age are you, Rowan?
Say I am nearly maybe 1 year and 8 months, 9 months.
Wow. You're a big boy, huh?
Yeah, big boy. He's starting to talk now. So say we know.
Yeah.
You just gave me a kiss. Wow. Oh, Rowan.
God, Auntie Ruth is working. Come on. Hello, Dor.
But then we'll play, okay?
Yeah, we'll play in a minute.
We'll play in a minute.
Come on. Good boy. We'll play in a minute.
Oh.
He's on the system.
It's delicious.
Delicious. Super, super cute. Hi. So, back to where we were.
Yep.
Yeah, and we did... we had a training course with 26 people, and we wanted to do impact driver mapping with 26 people. And then we created this structure where we paired people, and then only one half of the pair would go to the board to add stuff. But the other person had to sit down, connect to the person you were talking, and like cheer them on, and they had to be active, like really observing, cheer them on, and they could like shout out things if they wanted, if it was really important. If not, they just had to observe. And it was a lot of fun. And then every question we swapped. So, because we also didn't have the space for 26 people to stare in front of the board, but we wanted to find a way to do impact mapping with so many people. Yeah, and it was quite fun. And it worked in the end.
Yeah, a big wall is really important. Huh?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest groups we worked with was about 47.
Wow. At the same time?
Yeah, so this was with the SAOP project. So that's Sociocracy 3.0, Empowering Organizational Capacity.
Great.
This was the European funded project, funded by Erasmus Plus, and there was an award of about 100,000 euros to develop a train the trainer and multiplier program within the partner organizations, that being the Spanish and Italian Eco Village Network, Romanian Transition Network, and the University of Timișoara in Romania. So that project's about a year in now. There's a number of courses coming up now with people who've already undergone some basic training, and in the background are others like Andrea Uraya, Claudia Dobos, yeah? And who else? Jenny Caro, who's the
general manager for
general manager.
Gen in Europe, general manager.
Yeah, who came on some of the earlier S3 trainings. So that's really exciting. And we came together for 7 days, spread over 8 days in Italy for a residential program. And we had a 3-day introduction that Lily and I facilitated. And at the end of that, we went into the driver mapping. And basically, the primary driver was the primary driver for the SEOP project. So people who came, many of them had been recommended by the partner organizations. And then they took on real life ownership of the project and the program to carry it forward. And then we spent another 4 days coaching and mentoring people to actually apply the patterns that they've been learning in organizing the SEOP program.
Wow,
so
that's cool.
Really awesome, super intense. Some people didn't realize until day 5 that it was actually real. Oh, wait a minute. We really are the organization. We're doing it. How did this happen? You know, I thought we came to learn about it and now we're doing it. So it was a really good example of going from a kind of introduction and theory, a group of people, many of whom who'd never collaborated together before, within a few days, organizing reasonably effectively and failing fast, learning rapidly from their experiences, and organizing around a very complex driver, actually, because it's quite a complex program.
Wow, that sounds really cool. A part of me really wish I had been there, that I wasn't here.
Of course,
yeah.
It's really great. It was really awesome. Yeah.
So this idea of starting with the capacity building and equipping people with the tool, and then part of the program being about a real life organizational development and like concrete operational steps that have to be taken, and applying the patterns to organize all of this.
Yeah, well, actually, the real life organization was the whole of the SEOP program, as agreed with Erasmus Plus. So it went from a holding of a small group of people to a much more self-organizing shared stewardship amongst all of the partners and its members.
That's nice. That's really cool. I was really excited to hear that this got funding, and I spoke with Claudian as well, and there seemed to me really good stuff coming out of it. I have a question about the program. So there is probably a lot of learning that's happening, and experiences and people facilitating. How is that experience going to be collated and then shared? Like what are the parts in the program that we can connect to, maybe if we want to know more, or if we want to be able to use this wisdom that's been generated?
Yeah, well, the research element, although it was the funding for the research side was cut amazingly, and also the funding for the resources, the free resources, was cut. They were the two areas that were. But anyway, there is still work being done on that. So there are some quite high bars to jump in terms of research and providing evidence of the outcomes being met. So that will be available for the public record. I'm not sure exactly where that's at right now, but it's the accountability of the University of Timisoara to take that forward. So we're hoping for some kind of empiric research basically around that in the various partner organizations. And also there's LOVER, which is Library of Virtual Learning Resources. And that will have a place on the S3 website. And basically it's a place where all intellectual output developed by SEOC will be posted and shared with people.
Okay, great.
So these are the two elements. So what we're hoping is that there's a lot of learning around applying S3 into these particular contexts, the community, social context, that there'll be a lot of learning resources that others can then use from there, but also that there'll be some research on real case studies around what actually happens next.
Great. So we can follow kind of Sociocracy 3.0 website, and I suppose also the Facebook group. There will be news when the research is ready
Exactly.
That would be probably a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, hopefully before this. But let's see. Yeah.
And from your experience, like having taught these 21 introductory, so anything else to talk about the SEOC program? Like maybe.
No, I think that's good for me. Yeah.
Okay, and then so after doing this 21 courses, I believe in various types of settings. What has been how has S3 been received, and have groups and organizations started applying the patterns? Do you see that do you see that there is also an increase in this, in people applying the patterns? And from these trainings, like how, of course the answer to this is yes, but I think maybe just qualify a little bit how you saw the impact of all of these courses this year.
Yeah, okay. Well, something I've learned through teaching S3 is that there's a learning journey, and there's a moment of suspension between what was previously known and what might be known next. And as a trainer anyway, this is always a slightly sensitive area to navigate. So I've seen through repetition that this is the case teaching S3 too. And so we've learned more and more to clarify expectations for people prior to and at the beginning and regularly throughout the program. So inviting people to remain with not knowing, introducing the idea of learning and unlearning, and looking at the program as a learning journey that has a start, a middle, and an end. And all universally, in all contexts, by the end of the course, the pennies have dropped, and people have, to whatever degree they believe they have, at least sort of integrated the framework and understood some of the subtleties of what we're actually talking about. So this has been a big learning for me. We've been working cross-sector, so I think probably 40 to 50% of our audience has been the agile audience, and predominantly tech. And because that was one of our target audiences to begin with, one of the first market segments we wanted to push into, because it's such a snug fit with Agile, S3 anyway. And then on the other side, we've had this entrepreneurial side, social movements, and the community sector as well. The learning journey is quite rapid with the Agile community. And we've had to learn how to kind of pace up what we're doing, and also to make it increasingly interactive, the courses. And so this has been an ongoing challenge for us. We've got a pretty good formula now. We tend on the first day to give the kind of high level, introduce drivers, principle of consent. We also now have a nice exercise around chosen values, and we make a specific session dedicated to that. And we're bringing in this kind of training from the back of the room idea, like inviting people to share what they know first, and then a bit of theory, chance to practice, and then dialogue between participants around what they're learning, what they're unlearning, areas of interest, and then coming back to the main group. So how to shift the locus of attention from us more to the participants. I think we've got still much room to improve on that. But it's going in a good direction. And day 2 of the course, we focus on the decision making primarily, and also other patterns like coordinating work and so on. And then day 3, we used to have on a 3-day program the open space, but day 3 now we wrap up around like pulling in S3, for example. We start with a group, inviting them to share their hints and tips. In fact, we do that a lot. Tricks and tips. What would you suggest for effective proposal forming, or effective driver mapping, or pulling in S3 into an organization? And then we have the driver mapping on day 3 in the morning as well, and then we tend to have open space or lean cafe in the afternoon, just for people to focus more specifically into their area of interest. I think we've really compacted and condensed the learning, and we had to, because a lot of people weren't willing to invest in a 4-day residential program. And of course, if you have the privilege of a 4-day residential program with people, then it's possible to bring in much more around the edges, you know, the relational energetic side, the MVC side, the way of counsel, these kind of other modalities that really support people to deepen their learning and appreciation for S3.
And in the 2 days, for example, you were talking about you can do like the decision-making process, selection process, proposal forming, and all of this in day 1 and 2.
Yeah, yeah. Evaluating meetings, effectiveness review.
Yeah, and yeah, effectiveness review as well. Yeah, I'll share with you maybe after the call my 3-day program.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. We're trying next year. We're going to trial this pattern in Rio, where we're going to do Thursday night, Friday night, then Saturday and Sunday all day. And our idea is to do Thursday night and Friday night just about, how do you call it in English? Like awareness raising, awareness building, the more consciousness work of really looking at what are the drivers behind adopting something like S3 or the S3 patterns. What is the driver behind self-management, self-organization? How does it work in nature? What is your experience? Really do a more going deeper into our own ingrained patterns and culture, and how that also somehow can shift. And then doing Saturday and Sunday morning about like content. So working with patterns and just really focusing on practice, theory practice. And then doing driver mapping Sunday afternoon for planning the follow-ups. And then having 4 months of follow-up webinars.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So if we can cost this in a way that's, that's win-win, I think that's how I'd love to do it from now on. So there is, because I think it's also important to create this space where the pennies can drop and it's a safe environment and bring vulnerability in and all of these things.
Yeah.
Before going with a step-by-step process. Because if not, people end up bringing a lot of their inner struggles they're having to the actual process.
Yeah. I'd be interested to know how, if you develop more training, how you navigate that in terms of forms of follow-up. Let's say you had 21 courses in a year and you've got 4 months of follow-up with each individual group of participants. That could be quite challenging. If there's some kind of rolling program that we can look at developing.
Yeah, I think our idea, Tanya and I, is to actually have a 12-month schedule of webinars.
Yeah.
With certain topics, and maybe every 4 months, they're 4-month sessions, and you do 3 in a year. And in these 4 months, you have certain topics that you do with each webinar. So whoever can just come on, and then they pay a fixed monthly fee.
Yeah.
And then for example, in a course that we did, we put effectiveness review in the webinar. And then we also went deeper into coordinating work through the webinars, evaluation through the webinars. And now we're refreshing consent and objections. So going deeper into dealing with objections in the webinar. And then also driver and domains, basically circles, roles, like refreshing this, having everyone write a driver for their organizations, having everyone map a little bit what the organization looks like at the moment, if it was converted to circles and roles or teams and roles.
Yeah.
So and I think if we could work that out, it would be great. And I think maybe that's something you could do as well, that people could just join, monthly webinars with certain topics. And then if you've done a course, maybe you have a little discount. If you haven't done a course, you can still join. Yeah,
sounds good. Yeah. One thing we've also introduced into the courses now is you've got this the role description or circle description, which you probably realize is the same thing basically. They're the same, and then effectiveness review is the same, be it for a role or a circle as well. And so at the start of the courses, rather than presenting a role description for us as course facilitators, we have an empty slate, so we clarify the driver for the role. And then we do an exercise with a fishbowl for people to actually draft out the role description for the course trainers.
That's cool.
And that's we time box it, keep it quite tight, but it gives people a sense of ownership of the role. And then at the end of the course, we demonstrate again an effectiveness review. for us in the role, and it's just been awesome. I mean, one, because it demonstrates so nicely the whole process, from forming a role description to the effectiveness review, and the other thing is we just get such awesome feedback to help us improve in how we're serving the groups and developing the training.
Yeah, one of the courses we did effectiveness
Excuse me 1 minute,
review.
Ruth. Sorry,
Yeah,
just
sure.
give me 1 moment.
No, yeah, I did that in one course. We did the effectiveness review with the facilitator, and it was really great. A fishbowl. And then I like the idea of doing actually forming the rule. And then can I just share something I thought of yesterday when we're talking about proposals? I even wrote it. Let me get it so I know where it is. Just a second. I thought if you're thinking about when you're bringing a proposal to a meeting, or when you bring a proposal for consent, I don't know where I put it. I know it's in my WhatsApp. Just a second. Anyway, I thought of using so you have the driver, which is the why of the proposal, and then you have the why. So why is this relevant? What's the driver, which is the why really of the proposal? Then what is the proposal, the description? Then who will it affect? Will it affect certain roles or a circle? How do we know if it's working? Which roles can collect this information about how we know it's working? So it also sets clear metrics or because sometimes I feel that the evaluation criteria gets lost if it doesn't get assigned somehow to roles within the proposal. And then when do we want to evaluate? And I just couldn't come up with a where. So it's why, what, who, how, which, when.
Okay.
and I thought this was a nice way to explain, the elements of a proposal.
For sure.
Is there anything missing?
Why, what, who, how, which, this thing of which roles, doesn't this come under who? Who is accountable?
Maybe.
I would say so.
Maybe who does it affect and who is accountable.
Yeah. And also we are trying very much to help people understand that role is an optional pattern for in organizations, and it may be that you want circles with multifunctional teams and no specific roles at all. And so this is quite a big aha for many people, and certainly those who've gone through some kind of holacracy training or holacracy focus where everything's about roles. It's a bit of a revelation to realize that we don't actually need.
I feel I have some groups where we don't have roles and we just worked on operational backlog, but we felt that naturally the roles emerged. People were doing the same tasks. But if you have an agile team or if you have, a team of developers, then it also...
Yeah, it's both and. I mean, if you've got the Scrum, then you've got the Scrum Master and the product owner.
Yeah, that's true.
Coach
that's true. They do have roles. Yeah. So I can also see not having roles when maybe it's a short-term project or a short-term organization. Like a Dragon Dreaming project, you don't have roles. But we also found out that it's nice sometimes to clarify some of the roles, especially the more subtle, like someone to really look after the group, that can be like the vibe watcher, someone that can, whoa, we did something really cool in in one of our courses. We started the day with an operational meeting. So every day we would do a stand-up meeting and then bring the whatever tensions there were, and even some tensions, resolve them through governance, through a quick governance decision, and then put it in the backlog later if it was needed, because we also were planning a last governance meeting. And we created this role, which was the I can't even remember what was the name, but someone that was holding. So if anyone felt any emotional turmoil in the course, they would go and talk to this person, and the person would help them find a solution. And sometimes the solution was to come and talk to us and say, listen, you guys are saying too many words in English, and some people who don't know English are not feeling comfortable. And then, and this didn't have to be part of the whole group, which could have been good, but it would have taken a lot of time of the course. People felt really like they put it in the feedback that it was one of the best things, because they really felt that their emotional needs were being looked after. And the person who was doing the role comes from nonviolent communication, is a conflict mediator. So for her, it was also super important to have someone doing that. So it was such a win. It was really cool. Yeah.
So a role to deal with the emotional backlog. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then to pass it to the facilitators if needed. But if they can find a way to resolve it themselves, that's great as well. People just need to be heard. Yeah. One
thing I'd like to pick up on is the use of language. And when you were saying about people bring their tensions in the morning.
Yes.
And we're trying as much as possible to focus on bringing drivers, articulating drivers. Just again, it's a common crossover people make if they're familiar with holacracy. But then we start to get this question: well, what's the difference between attention and a driver, and how do I describe attention, and how do I describe a driver? So on that topic, I think we said before the call about just clarifying these two ways in which we can use the term tension. So one is like the more like the dictionary definition, it's like two forces, or tension exists between two forces acting on one another. And so we can understand tensions in the organization, like two departments with a kind of demand for the same resources, or disagreement between two people, and so on and so forth. So this is one way to understand it. And when we talk about navigating via tension in S3, then obviously we're talking more about that sense of tension that we feel in ourselves, in our bodies, our emotions, our minds, and then asking, well, what's the source of that tension? And from there, we start to discover the driver, because we need to articulate what's actually happening, and then start thinking, well, in our context, what is it that might be needed, that were we to respond to it would bring about the kind of change we want to see. And so that we're immediately into the domain of drivers. So as a trainer, I'm encouraging people to stick with this term drivers, and it's drivers, yeah. It's like the operational backlog is full of driver statements, the governance backlog full of driver statements. And it's like the bundle of data that most succinctly describes the thing happening, thing needed, that we can pass between one another and simply understand what we were talking about.
Cool. I think we definitely do the full, like the governance meeting in the courses is a full backlog of drivers. When we're actually I feel that when we're actually doing it in real life, sometimes you don't really write the full driver statement. Sometimes you just write a couple of words. And that's what we do the operational meeting. Like it was just a couple of words. We're also, I think both Rafael, Fabi, and Tanya and I, like in Brazil, we've been really focusing on sensing and spending enough time with sensing to really make this distinction between the tension and the driver, like just the sensing as something that can be an intuition or something you feel in your body, or an emotion or a tension. Like it can also a dream, like it can be all of these subjective things that you're sensing. And then how do you transform this in a way that other people can relate to this and that it can be processed? And then we bring the idea of driver. And Tanya and I, we also created this thing, which is also a bit mixing with dragon dreaming. We were really focusing on people being nerve endings in their organizations and really can sense really finely what's going on. And then we did this matrix of how do people sense? Because people sense different things. And this is the whole point about encouraging diversity in our organizations. It's because people sense different things. So some people sense things, they sense future possibilities, so they're always connected to big ideas and big dreams and sensing on that field of vision and dreams and future. We have people that are really like to sense small details, so they're really focusing on small details. We like people that love to sense the interconnections and the more emotional play between people, and they're always sensing if there is a bit of like strange energies between people. Anyway, we created these 4 quadrants, and then we had people move and see how, what kind of what kind of nerve ending, how do they sense in their organizations?
That's really nice and honoring. Can I just jump in a moment? So I'm also thinking about people who sense opportunities, but also people who are really good at sensing problems, because it gives a valid place for people who are great at articulating the things
they're missing,
Yeah. That's really cool. So, that gets me thinking maybe in future we could consider the possibility of navigating via sensing rather than navigating via attention.
I like that a lot. And the idea of sense and respond, and and at the core of, life's organizational principles as well. And I think it really matches. And and then anyway, it was also interesting to just show. But
we got Yael here.
Yes, Yael. Hi, darling.
Look what he just brought me from the garden. I don't know what type of variety it is.
Oh, wow! It's mushroom.
I don't know if we can eat that one.
But that's a cool gift.
Beautiful, huh?
Beautiful. So, James, maybe just anything else that we wanted to talk about. So we spoke about tensions and these 2 sources of tensions, and to really focus on drivers. I like the idea of sensing more than tensions. Like maybe, that's an interesting route. And I also wanted to say, should we expect you? Sorry, you're mute. No? You had muted yourself. Can you talk? I can't. No? You can't hear me? I can't hear you. No? Oh, well, so maybe this is the end then. Can you type?